Okay, so what does the fighter build do? Larger patrol range. What does that mean? So in general, you may have a patrol range that in tier 10 is going to be 3.5 kilometers across, from point A to point B. Now, the larger patrol range, this is an increase of 10%, which is going to kick it up to about 3.8. So change this out to maybe something like this. It's not going to be much larger, but it's larger. If you have the addition, the 2 point, you're going to have more consumables. So that means that you're going to go from having 333 to having 444 across your different plane types. So you're going to have an additional 3 consumables dispersed across your plane types for 2 commander points. Once again, if we go for the 3-point talent, then even further still, we're going to have yet more patrol range. And again, this is not to size, but I mean, still bigger. The patrol range comes in enemy plane immunity. What does that mean? So if you have an enemy patrol fighter, you could drop your patrol fighter right on the edge, and the 2 planes would actually circle until they meet each other in the middle, and then they will cancel each other out. They'll shoot each other, and both consumables will be burned. So if there's a specific spot on the map that you really, really, really want to protect, this prevents the enemy CV from using a fighter consumable to bait off the defense. And the other thing is, if you have an FDR, which is charging along, if you can swing over, you can cut it off, drop a fighter here. Your fighter goes down, which, assuming your fighter build, say the radius is going to be rather large, what the FDR can do is drop its own little patrol fighter at the same time and continue on its way. We'll use a different color for it continuing. So it's going to continue, maybe it cuts out, and perhaps you come out and you try to follow or something. Well, in this instance, the red patrol fighter is going to be so close to the green patrol fighter, if it was a patrol fighter, that they would just shoot each other. They wouldn't actually latch onto the enemy player's planes. And they would just negate the use of the fighter consumable. You can't actually stop the FDR with that. Enemy plane immunity means your fighter, your interceptors, will ignore enemy patrol fighters and will instead latch and go after FDR planes to, in the case of a tier 10 consumable, kill 7 FDR planes, which is a third of what the FDR has of a given type. Starts with 21 bombers, 21 torpedoes, 21 rockets. So that actually erases a third of its capability from what it currently has. Can it regen? Sure, but it's going to take time. It's about 2 minutes per plane. But there is no ship spotting. You don't get any more surface spotting at all. So there is a bit of a trade-off. So you have the ability to bully an enemy CV. You're making your carrier into more of a support style carrier by reducing other offensive capabilities you have against surface ships, in this case spotting, because you could just drop a patrol fighter somewhere, which would light a section or an enemy ship position where people could constantly harass and barrage it. And then lastly, we've got the 4-point, which is enhanced reactions, has a faster latch time. What does that mean? So if you've got a friendly ship that needs to be protected and you drop a patrol fighter on it, that patrol fighter has a 2-second warm-up time. So we'll do this, make it a little green. 2-second latch. That means that an enemy CV can come in, breach this line, has 2 seconds to get from here to here, to come in and make their attack and leave before the patrol fighters will actually respond. So what the patrol fighters do, they don't prevent the initial attack, they prevent the follow-up attack, because they latch and kill remaining planes, probably preventing you from swinging around and striking again. When you have enhanced reactions, you instead have something like a maybe a 0.2 second latch. I don't have precise numbers on this, but it's damn near immediate. So because of that, when the enemy CV comes in, rather than having all of this time before the fighters are going to latch, they will immediately latch at the entry point, come over and start shooting as the enemy CV is lining up the attack coming in. So you start having an intercept here. It doesn't mean that the intercept's going to be stopped, but if the enemy CV is not coming in with like a full wave of, say, 9, if they're coming in with instead like a group of 5 because it's later in the game or they don't have as many of the asset, that intercept may actually shoot down 3, 4, potentially 5 planes before the bombs make a drop, or before they're able to effectively attack your friend. So the difference with the latch time is offset, however, by the longer setup time. Instead of setting up in 5 seconds, it goes instead to about 7.5 seconds. So basically you're front loading the latch time. Rather than like setting up in 5 seconds and latching 2 seconds when whatever's in there, it just kind of front loads it. So when it comes on station, it's now going to immediately snap on. And then lastly, you have the shorter duration as kind of a way to mitigate the strength of the enhanced reactions. I do tend to offset this by using the Squadron Consumable mod in slot 5. So that is how I kind of go over that, because instead of having a 45-second fighter, it turns into 67.5. The first 7.5 is the setup period, and then the remaining 60 seconds it will stay on station. So what does the fighter build do? It does all of these different things. Primarily, you're going to be using this against FDR, because FDR planes are so slow that you can trap them, and then they don't have a way out. And because FDR planes have so much health, they're basically a battering ram, and you can give your team assistance by reducing the amount of planes they have to deal with to bully the FDR off of them. So I do actually find it to be quite mandatory in ranked situations right now, because frankly people just don't know how to group for AA, or they don't want to. Maybe they feel that it breaks the game and they're just not interested in doing it. Whatever the reason is, when the FDR is not properly pressured, then the FDR runs around dunking people, and you just kind of watch in sadness as your teammates get murdered. So that's what a fighter build does. And just for specific, I do recommend the fighter build personally in competitive situations, i.e. ranked, or I would even recommend it in clan battles. Although many CV players probably are not going to do that, but I would not recommend it in, so whatever, not recommended in randoms. Why? Because the random maps are so big that you may be operating on a completely different flank than the enemy CV, and the only way your fighters are going to matter against an enemy CV is if you are operating in the same area, or you're trying to protect a target that it has to get to or something. You may not come into contact with the CV very much, because frankly just how big the maps are, and that it diminishes the capability of the build. You're not losing a lot. Mostly you're just losing some additional torpedo throughput. Other than that, the rest of it's kind of just aiming skills. But if the fighter doesn't matter, then you didn't gain anything by use of the points.